All right, guys, I'm back, and I wanted to talk about free agency tonight because honestly, in the next few days, we're going to see some fireworks, and we've seen the beginnings of some free agency things already happening. So we've got DeAndre Jordan opting out of his contract, which was kind of surprise. You thought that maybe he would have kept in that contract, but it's obviously a deal is going to happen. But we're not here to talk about DeAndre Jordan because that's not really going to change the landscape of the NBA. We're here to talk about three people: Kawhi, Paul George, and LeBron James, and what we think is going to happen with them. So, if I'm not mistaken, free agency begins July 1st. I actually think that on July 1st, you're going to just see things happen pretty quick because what I think is that these guys already know what's going to happen, and I have my own ideas of what's going to happen because of some of the things that we've seen. We're going to read a little tea leaves here and just kind of predict what's going to happen. And then on July 1st, after it all goes down, we'll talk about it after the fact, see what we were right about and what we were not right about. All right, so we have Paul George, LeBron James, both opted out of their contracts. Kawhi Leonard has been the story for a while now, last month or so, that he wanted out of San Antonio or a trade. And we've seen tweets from Woj and Mark Stein and Shams saying that he wants to go to LA. So I don't know if it's possible, and I don't really think it's possible for all three to go to LA. And here's why. So two of these guys have opted out of their contracts. Free agents can go to wherever they want. Paul George and LeBron James. Kawhi, to go to someone else, needs to be traded. He's still under contract with San Antonio. So for him to go somewhere, he has to be traded. And that's why what I predict is going to happen is Paul George and LeBron James are both going to LA. And the reason is they don't have to trade for them. They just have to sign them. So if they want to get Kawhi, you have to trade the assets to get him. And the Lakers do have assets to make a trade. They have Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma. You can trade those players to bring over Kawhi, and then you can sign LeBron. Or why I think that Paul George and LeBron are just going to go to LA and that Kawhi might end up going to Boston, actually, is that they can just sign Paul George and LeBron James. They don't have to trade any assets for him. That's the reason it's easier to get them there. And then the assets you trade is just to clear space. So the big thing with LA right now is they have the Luol Deng contract that's been holding them up. That's a big. I mean, it's a big contract for Luol Deng. I can't remember what it is. Maybe I'll look it up real quick. But they would have to get rid of that unless they're wanting to pay the repeater tax, and maybe they don't have to pay the repeater tax because I don't believe the Lakers are over their cap limit. But if they don't want to pay any cap penalties, then they'll have to trade Luol Deng. But maybe the Lakers don't care. Maybe they understand that they're in a big market and that bringing LeBron James and Paul George over kind of offsets those costs. Let's see. Luol Deng makes $18 million a year. Man. So he's going to make $18 million this upcoming season and then the next. It's really bad. It's really bad. So here's the thing. If you're the Lakers and you want to trade for Kawhi Leonard, you still probably have to get rid of this Luol Deng contract. So not only are you trading assets to get Kawhi Leonard, but then you have to trade to get rid of Luol Deng because no one's taking that contract without bringing assets back. That's why I think, and if you're a Jazz fan or a team like the Pacers or kind of a small market team looking for young talent, this might be your opportunity to get into it because maybe you can say, hey, we would love Kyle Kuzma and we'll take that Luol Deng contract to bring him over. Because we think Kyle Kuzma could be the power forward of the future for our team. That might be what happens. Or Lonzo Ball, who is going to be a very nice player. I know there's a lot of, he brings a lot of controversy, but Lonzo Ball is going to be a really nice player. So he's an asset they can trade. I don't think he's a player that like the Spurs may want, but maybe there's another team out there that would love Lonzo Ball. I already forgot his name. How do I forget his name? The dad. Big baller. Dang it. Let me know in the comments. But he's going to be mad. Papa Ball is going to be mad. But it doesn't matter because he's an asset and they're going to trade him if they need to. Because if you can trade Lonzo Ball and get Kawhi Leonard, who when healthy is a top 5 player, you do it. But Paul George and LeBron James might just be enough to make yourself a contender. Now, if they can bring them in and then trade all those assets for Kawhi Leonard, maybe. I just don't know if the assets are enough to do all three and also keep room to sign everyone. Because LeBron James, we all know, is LeBron wants to be a $1 billion athlete. And Paul George, we know, wants to go to LA, but he'd like to be paid. Kawhi's going to want to get paid, and Kawhi, the thing that's interesting about Kawhi, and because he doesn't say very much, it's hard to know what he wants to do. But Kawhi is taking less money by going anywhere else. If he goes to the Spurs, he gets the Supermax, the 5-year crazy amount of money that he would have gotten, that he qualifies for. But if he goes to Boston or LA or wherever it is, he's going to take less. So maybe he wants to take less to go to LA. My prediction, it's going to be the Lakers. Because what we saw from Boston is that Boston leaked to Woj, and this is something that general managers do all the time, but leaked to Woj that they're making trade calls with San Antonio to make a trade. And maybe we see Jaylen Brown go for Kawhi Leonard. But then after the fact, they release another tweet saying that they're not willing to trade too much because of Kawhi's injury history. And what that is Danny Ainge is telling Woj to tweet these things because he's trying to figure out the cost, and he's trying to figure out what LA's willing to pay so he can either beat it or undercut it or whatever. It's something that general managers do, and I know that the Jazz have done that where they've leaked information to kind of gauge interest. So that if you remember before Donovan Mitchell, and this was a masterful job by Dennis Lindsay, and it's why he honestly deserved Executive of the Year. He won second place in Executive of the Year. He released that the Jazz were interested in Donovan Mitchell. If you go back to those tweets during that draft, you'll see that Woj, I can't remember who it was. I actually think it was Jody Genessee, a local Jazz beat writer here, who said Utah Jazz are interested in Donovan Mitchell. What does that do? Teams call and say, well, what do you want? And what happened in that draft is Denver actually called Utah about that trade to make it happen. The Jazz didn't really call about that trade. Denver called Utah because they knew what they wanted. And that's what's going on right now is teams are posturing, leaking information to Woj, seeing what the market is to find out what the cost is. And then I think what happened is Boston found out the cost and they don't want to pay it. Because LA's saying, hey, San Antonio's not a chump team. Like Cleveland has bad ownership, had a brand new GM who was trying to make a splash and made a trade. And honestly, the trade for Kyrie Irving netted them a number 8 pick, and we'll see if Colin Sexton turns out to be really good. But San Antonio's not giving up Kawhi Leonard for nothing. And they don't have to do anything. They can trade him to whoever they want. And as we're seeing right now with actually Paul George, ironically, is he seems like he's not closed off to the idea of re-signing with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Teams like Boston and LA could get nervous if they really want Kawhi. If, let's say, he goes to some team like the Knicks or something that makes a trade for him, and let's say Kawhi goes to the Knicks and enjoys it and decides he wants to stay there, do Boston and LA they want to risk losing him because they didn't want to pay the price? That's what Danny Ainge is trying to find out from Boston, and I'm sure LA knows kind of what the cost is for Kawhi, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Honestly, what we're doing right now is a waiting game because I'm sure that LA wants to know what LeBron does and what Paul George does, and they're probably ready to just sign them and make trades after the fact to make sure they have the cap room for them, unless they don't care about the cap and will just pay the price. But that's honestly what's going to happen, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. You can have your opinions. Tell me what they are in the comments. But this is what I think. And I honestly think that it's, unless Paul George does something crazy, let's say Paul George decides to stay in Oklahoma City, which would be interesting. That team is another story, a whole mess with their money problems. But LeBron James is going to LA. He's just waiting for LA to decide between Kawhi and PG. That's why, honestly, the Kawhi thing is so interesting to me because they still have that Luol Deng contract. And San Antonio doesn't have to take Luol Deng on. It's not like a team saying we'll take on a bad contract and you give us either a draft pick or a young asset like a Kuzma or Lonzo Ball. LeVar Ball, that's his name. It's LeVar. Oh, I hiccuped while I spoke. That's why San Antonio's not taking on a bad contract. They don't have to. They're just taking on good assets for Kawhi. That's why I think it's Paul George. But Paul George could throw a wrench in things if he stays in Oklahoma City. How crazy would it be if Paul George stays and Kawhi, they don't want to make a trade. Kawhi goes to like Boston or something, but LeBron doesn't want to go to Boston. And so LeBron just stays in Cleveland or something. That would be nuts. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me in the comments. What did I say that was incorrect? I don't know a lot about contracts. I know a little bit. I'm trying to learn about things. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to this video because I would appreciate it. I will talk to you later.